Brothers and sisters of Africa, friends across the world, welcome back to Voice of Africa. Before we begin, please take a second to like this video so YouTube recommends it to more people. Your support keeps Africa's voice strong, independent, and heard. Now imagine a scene in one of Europe's most powerful capitals. A big, bright board in Parliament shows two simple numbers: 194 for, 364 against. And those numbers knock down a government in a single afternoon. A prime minister who promised tough choices is suddenly out. A president is rushing to find a replacement. The country that once drew borders across our continent cannot even draw a budget line at home. This is not just a French story. It is a global story about power shifting, about narratives collapsing, and about Africa stepping forward with more confidence than ever before. On Monday, September 8, 2025, the French National Assembly voted on a motion of confidence in Prime Minister François Bayrou and his plan to cut spending by about 44 billion euros. The plan was supposed to reduce a large budget deficit and calm fears about rising public debt. But lawmakers from the left and the right, and even from parts of the center, said no. The final count, 364 against and 194 in favor, was a resounding defeat. In a system that prides itself on order and calculation, the math simply did not add up. The result was immediate. Bayrou resigned. The story moved quickly across Reuters, AP, France 24, The Guardian, Euronews, and every major outlet. It was not rumor. It was the official public collapse of a government that tried to sell pain without a convincing promise of progress. Within a day, President Emmanuel Macron named a new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, a close ally and former defense minister. But this appointment, rather than signaling strength, revealed fragility. Lecornu became the fifth Prime Minister in less than 2 years. When a country changes its head of government so often, it begins to look less like healthy change and more like a machine slipping its gears. Lecornu promised consensus, but he immediately took positions that many voters dislike. He ruled out bringing back the wealth tax that some see as a tool for fairness, and he stood by an unpopular pension reform. He must now craft a 2026 budget that cuts the deficit in a parliament where the government does not have a majority. Stability by another name is still instability if the numbers and the mood of the public do not move in the same direction. To understand why this matters beyond France, we need to look at the story behind the story. For decades, part of France's power did not come from Paris alone. It came from its reach into Africa, its bases, its defense pacts, its currency influence through the CFA franc, and its cultural pull through what it calls francophonie. These tools helped Paris tell itself and the world that it remained a global force. But over the last few years, that framework has been taken apart step by step, not by accident, but by deliberate choices made in African capitals. In 2022, Mali ended France's military presence. In 2023, Burkina Faso followed. Later that year, Niger pushed out French diplomats and troops. In 2024, Chad moved to end defense agreements. By 2025, Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire reshaped France's role and privileges on their soil. Across the Sahel, flags that once looked permanent came down. The empire did not vanish in a single day. It faded because African nations chose a different direction. Each French convoy leaving West Africa also left a hole in the story that France had told about itself. At home, the numbers turned stubborn. Public debt hovered above 110% of GDP. The deficit stayed well above the European Union's target. Each new reform, pensions, taxes, spending cuts, brought protests, strikes, and a sense that the social contract was wearing thin. Prime ministers came and went. The country felt stuck between what it wanted to be and what it could afford to be. Bayrou's plan for 44 billion euros in cuts was meant to signal discipline to markets and European partners. But lawmakers and many citizens did not see a fair plan for growth or a clear horizon. They heard sacrifice without vision. That is why the vote was not close. It was a message, not like this. For African audiences, there is a deep irony here. For years, some Western commentators used language that belittled Africa. Leadership changes in Mali or Burkina Faso were called signs of immaturity, while France's constant reshuffles were praised as democratic turnover. But the images from September 2025 needed no translation. Riot police in Paris, strikes closing trains and schools, teachers and health workers marching, a prime minister who lasted only months. The metropole was now facing the very storms it once described as distant problems. It is a reality you build every day, and France was discovering how fragile that reality can be. The cracks in France's situation can be seen in three simple lines. The first is arithmetic. The deficit remains almost twice the EU's standard, and even the boldest cuts may not fix it quickly without damaging social services. The second is legitimacy. A government that cannot pass a basic budget is a government with a shrinking mandate. The third is narrative. For a long time, France sold its role in Africa as proof of its global importance. Today, with African nations choosing their own paths, those sentences from Paris, redeployment, reset, partnership of equals, sound like words searching for a reality. African capitals are not waiting for Paris anymore. They are designing their own security, economic, and diplomatic routes. None of this means Africa caused Bayrou's fall. The vote was a domestic decision in Paris. But context matters. When you lose your external pillars, your internal walls must be strong. If the economy is weak, if politics is divided, if people feel tired of sacrifice, the system can fail fast. And that is what we saw. The outward image of French power shrank at the same time the inward strength of the French government was tested. Without the old external props, every domestic problem looks bigger and feels heavier. The other half of the story is what Africa has done with the new space. In Bamako, Ouagadougou, and Niamey, leaders, liked or disliked, praised or criticized, have made choices that share one core idea: sovereignty. That means the freedom to pick security partners, the freedom to set economic rules, and the freedom to define national goals. Russia has stepped in as a security partner for some. The Gulf, Turkey, India, and China have invested in infrastructure, energy, and trade links. New regional groupings like the Alliance of Sahel States show a clear intent to pool resources and coordinate policies without looking to Paris for permission. These paths will not all be smooth. Some will come with risks and pitfalls. But the key point is this: the handwriting is African. The authors are African. The direction is African. Back in Paris, Sébastien Lecornu faces a difficult map. He has said no to bringing back a wealth tax. He wants the 2026 deficit down around 4.7%. He must build a budget with no stable majority. He promises to speak to everyone, but numbers can be unforgiving. People will not accept cuts if they cannot see a fair plan to grow, invest, and give hope. Even in France's own press, there is a sense of waiting, watching, and holding breath. Lecornu is taking his time. But the calendar is not friendly. Another budget fight is coming. If he loses it, Paris could see another quick fall, and the revolving door at the Prime Minister's office will spin again. France's challenge is not unique. Many European countries are trying to protect generous social systems while facing slower growth, older populations, and harsher global competition. What made France different for a long time was its ability to point to Africa and say, "Look, we still matter." That ability is fading. Commentators now talk about France as a mid-level European power, not a global empire. This is not an insult. It is a reality check. Power in today's world is multi-centered. Influence is not a single throne. It is a network of choices, ideas, and results. Africa is now a center in that network, not a shadow. So what should Africa learn from Paris's crisis? First, do not gloat. Focus. The end of someone else's shadow is not the start of your sunshine unless you build the light yourself. That means doing the patient work of state building. Courts must enforce contracts fairly. Customs must speed up trade, not slow it down with corrupt delays. Audit offices must bite, not bark. Procurement should support local industry when possible, creating jobs that last. Budgets must prioritize power plants, classrooms, clinics, roads, and broadband, the basics that make private enterprise possible. Security forces must protect citizens, not prey on them. Every time we do these things, we reduce the space for old colonial stories and we increase the space for our own future. We must also talk seriously about money. As long as our currencies and central banking systems leave us exposed to sudden shocks, our budgets will be at the mercy of the same cruel arithmetic that just humbled Paris. If the CFA franc is to change or be replaced, it must be done carefully, with strong regional institutions, buffer reserves, and realistic transition plans. Regional development banks should stop repeating the same slow paperwork and start syndicating big projects at the speed builders need, not the speed donors prefer. When a rainy season is coming, a road must start before the rain, not after the conference. Culture matters as well. France once used Francophonie to project soft power, but today our stories carry themselves. Dakar's films set trends. Bamako's guitar lines echo across continents. Abidjan's dance pulses in European clubs. Nollywood shapes global streaming platforms. Music from Luanda and Maputo travels farther and faster than any embassy cable. We do not need anyone's approval to tell our stories. We need platforms, protection for artists' rights, and the courage to keep telling the truth. Will France recover? It can, but not by pretending the past is the present. France has strong institutions, skilled engineers, respected universities, and a serious industrial base. Its future strength will come from honest accounting and realistic goals, not from imperial nostalgia or costly illusions. Voters are not fools. They accept sacrifice if they can see a real horizon. Bayrou failed because he offered cuts without hope. Lecornu says he will find a better balance. The assembly, the streets, and the markets will decide if he can. For Africa, this moment is rare. We are not simply reacting to Paris. Paris is reacting to us and to a world where we have options. Our question is not, which great power do we follow? Our question is, how do we make all powers compete to offer Africa the best terms, while we keep control of our own path? That begins at home. Pay civil servants on time so they have no excuse to sell favors. Publish contracts so citizens can see the deals being made in their name. Train young people in skills that match the jobs we plan to create. Electricians for new grids, machinists for new factories, coders for new platforms, agronomists for new farms. When we do this, we turn options into leverage and leverage into results. Let us be very clear. The confidence vote in Paris did not end France, but it ended the illusion that the old script still works. The vote said no not only to one leader, but to a story that no longer fits the times. Historians will remember the headlines, Bayrou out, government falls, Lecornu in. They will also look at what happened south of the Mediterranean at the same time. New refineries starting work, new trade corridors being built, new debates on currency and financial independence, new security compacts formed without French permission. The center of gravity did not shift in a single night. It moved over years. Paris is only now seeing how far the shift has gone. So yes, a government fell in a country that once drew the boundaries on our map. But our story is not about their fall. Our story is about our rise. It is a rise measured not by speeches, but by factories that hum and farms that feed, by ports that clear shipments on time and courts that settle disputes fairly, by teachers who stay because salaries arrive each month, by engineers who return because contracts are clean, by artists who create because their voices are free. This is the sovereign future. It does not require Paris to bless it. It requires us to build it, together, with patience and courage. If you found this analysis valuable, please like this video so YouTube shows it to more people, and subscribe to Voice of Africa for more fact-driven reporting in our own words. Tell us in the comments, what lessons should African leaders take from France's crisis? Do you think Europe will see more instability? And how should Africa prepare? Your thoughts guide our next deep dive. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned.